Hey Danielle, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I hope my internet holds up. It's been a challenge today.
Oh, I hope my daughter stays sleeping, so
I also have a sleeping kid to worry about.
that's okay. We'll make it work somehow. Most people kind of know who you are, but for those who don't, Dr. Danielle Jones, she goes online by Mama Dr. Jones, and I've been, very much inspired by your work online, the content you put out. I think it's super educational, and it empowers, I think, probably primarily women and for their reproductive health, but also you cover lots of different topics. I've watched a bunch of your videos, and I think it helps the rest of us who are kind of starting out as physicians online, trying to do something positive out there, to kind of know maybe which direction to take this all in. So I appreciate what you've done spearheading some of these efforts.
Thank you. I've been on the internet as a medical professional for a long time, and I feel like it's really only been in the past 3 years or so that I've really figured out exactly what I wanted kind of my niche to be, and gotten comfortable with video content, which I feel like was a big jump in how much reach I could have. So I'm glad there's other people who are feeling like that is good for them as well, because the more good information we can have, the better.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess to start off, how did you get into it? Because most of us don't, we're not taught this stuff, right? We're just taught how to, in our specific kind of specialty, all the nitty gritty stuff, and then kind of thrown out into the world. And, a lot of us take academic jobs, some go into private practice, and then we have to sort of figure out the rest of it and like what you want to do other than seeing patients and taking care of patients. How'd you get started in the whole online space, and why?
Yeah, I don't remember what made me kind of shift. Twitter was just becoming kind of a thing when I was early in my medical school career, and I was on Twitter, and I think I just started connecting with other students there, and from that I had like a jumping point to really start being a voice of medical students. And so I got the opportunity to sit down with some really big name doctors who were, I mean, Twitter was like our only outlet at that time. I think this was in
Yeah.
like 2010. And I was on a panel with Dr. Wendy Sue Swanson, who's still online, and Dr. Oh gosh, I can't, his blog was 33 Charts, and he still does a lot of like pediatric GI stuff
Oh,
online.
cool.
And I got to sit on a panel with them at Doximity, which was a startup at the time, but is now a very large health company. And that kind of started like my interest in it. And I was doing a lot of learning online with other students, but then I saw kind of the opportunity not only to teach other people online and teach my patients, but to learn from patients. And that's where my real passion in social media became. I started kind of perusing some of the fertility blogs and listening to people's stories about miscarriages and how their doctors treated them, and just really hearing like things that could have been done better from a patient perspective. And I thought there's such a wealth of information here that we can't get in medical school to learn
Mhm.
from patients when they're telling their stories online, and they want us to hear how we can make their care better, how our bedside manner could be better, how we can phrase things better. And there's such a missed opportunity there of things they don't teach us in med school. So that's kind of how I started listening online. And then once I got into private practice, I took about 4 years off when I was in residency. I had 6-month-old twins when I started my residency, and I just like was, I need to focus on learning to be a great doctor, and then I'll go back to social media when I get done. And so in 2017, I started kind of the Mama Dr. Jones brand, and started doing a lot of teaching, a lot of outreach, and just learning online still. And it blossomed from there. And I'm
Yeah.
happy with the connections I've made and the patients that I've been able to teach. And I'm not with residents anymore, so it's a great outlet for still getting to do some teaching. And
That's great. No, absolutely. I'm sorry, my wiener dog's over here trying to get up. He's unrelenting. There he is. And he's
hi, he's so
on my
cute.
foot and trying to get up, and I'm like, get away from me. But yeah, no, I think that's great. No, thanks for kind of taking us, kind of from the beginning. And also it points out that like back when you started, there weren't too many outlets, and now there are so many, and it's almost like inundating. Where do you post, how do you post, and all that kind of stuff. I think there were fewer options back in the day, so kind of whoever was interested was in one place, and so that probably had its benefits. So then now, like, I guess, yeah, how do you decide which content to like create, and what to put out on which platform?
Yeah, a lot of it really just has to do with where I feel like drawn
Hmm.
to post or what I want to talk about. I know a lot of people do really like planned out content and they have all this stuff laid out. And I have certainly like idea lists, but I generally tend to just post where I feel like it needs to be posted and on topics that are important at that moment. So, you know, right now we've been having a big conversation on Twitter about Vagisil and their marketing towards teens and how it's problematic. And I tried to bring it to Instagram, and Vagisil kind of like closed off all their comments on their posts. And so that's going to YouTube now because I can't do it here. So I think, you know, it's just whatever the conversation is that needs to be had and wherever it would make the impact that it needs to make. And then also where you see, you know, people posting bad information and correcting that.
So that was one of the questions I had for you. Like, what do you do about content like that's already on your videos, like the comment sections, if there's stuff out there that people are writing that just isn't accurate or is just, you know, dangerous potentially for others to read? I mean, do you go and sort of police that? Do you just let it just kind of open? Because I had one video I put out on like do-it-yourself filler. It's apparently a whole community and they teach each other. I know. It's crazy. And so I put out a video and, you know, it was meant to be somewhat funny, but it was also very educational, I felt. But that community came out pretty strong and felt like I'd been meeting them all, and started to write a lot of inaccurate things on the page. So I ended up actually turning off comments because it not like I don't really care about my feelings. It's just that it's just not, it wasn't accurate. I was like tired of pointing, you know, out FDA policies and the legal side of it, and I was just like, this is wrong, like, you know, and they kept spreading. It was just misinformation that kept spreading. So what do you do about that?
Yeah, I have a very low threshold to delete comments that are factually inaccurate. Now, if someone comes along and they give me criticism that says, hey, you know, like this is a cultural identity and you're attacking our culture or something like that, well, I need to sit with that and figure out like what's the difference between someone coming here and being hateful versus someone giving me criticism that's done in a kind way. And there's been many times over the course of being online where someone has criticized something I've said and I've thought, yeah, you know, I maybe missed the mark on that one. I need to do better. But if somebody's posting like, you know, look at this anti-vaccine page, or, you know, go check out this doctor that's testing your hormones and, you know, sending you a supplement to fix them, like delete. I will delete that. And if people sometimes, like I've had the anti-vax community just come attack a post in droves, and it's obvious that a post has been posted somewhere in their community and they've said like, go tell this person what you think. Yeah. I'll turn the comments off. Like I don't have a problem with doing that. And a lot of times on my Instagram, my comments are restricted to people who follow me, because I find that if someone is going to, you know, go through the effort to follow me, they generally are going to either criticize me with something that I can sit with and learn from, or they're going to post a valuable comment. So, you know, there's different ways of dealing with it. And obviously, especially on YouTube where I get a lot more interaction, I can't police it, all of it. But I definitely have a low threshold to delete things that are dangerous and to block people who are just being nasty.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I was getting a little bit nervous that they'd like find my review pages for my practice and start, you know, luckily it didn't, you know, get that far. I don't think it was as motivated of a community as maybe some of the others out there. But it is scary, and especially with like the political environment and everything that we were seeing, to see that. Like, it was weird seeing it like materialize or like happen on like my small channel, you know, so I'm sure there's a bigger problem out there. But yeah, interesting. And then do you have like a favorite platform these days, or do you find that there's just a role for each of the different ones?
I think everything has a role, and I obviously love Instagram. This is kind of where I established my online persona, but YouTube is probably my favorite platform just because I feel like the reach there for me is really great. I enjoy making video content. It kind of allows me to have a little bit more of a creative outlet, and it's currently the only platform that I feel does a good job with kind of letting content live on past the 48-hour mark. Instagram is getting there. They've created kind of a guide section and some other things that they're trying to do to get things IGTV to live a little bit longer, but it just, your stuff loses traction so quickly and it's not searchable. So hopefully they're working on making that better too.
Right. Yeah. Some of my patients will like, oh, what about this? And I'll be like, that was like 2 posts ago if you missed it. And then, you know, then they're like, what? You're only kind of as good as your last post on Instagram. Yes. Cool. And then so like you mentioned kind of like over time finding, I guess, your audience and figuring out like which content was really resonating. Like how long did that take? And like was there like one day like, oh, this is it because of a certain number of comments, or like how do you kind of figure that out? Because I feel like even myself now, like I'm still a little bit broad just because my practice, even though it's kind of specialized, but there's still some different elements to it. And I like talking about all of it. So, you know, but then it's like, well, maybe people don't want to hear about all of it. Maybe they would just want to hear one facet, you know, and I'm sure others are going through that same issue of figuring themselves out for their like online presence.
It comes down, I think, more to who you're talking to than it does what you're talking about. So it was definitely kind of just a trajectory for me, but I always knew going in who I was talking to, and that was reproductive age people with a uterus, or people who want to get pregnant, are pregnant, could be pregnant, and all of those people fall into kind of a category who
Mm-hmm.
generally, if I know who they are and I can imagine in my head who I'm talking to, almost anything I am going to talk about will be relevant to that person. It's obviously a little easier in my niche because my specialty is niche down by default just because of what we do. But there's still so many broad topics that no be guide. So I think it's just a process of figuring out who you're talking to. And that was a process for me too. I mean, I got on Instagram knowing who I wanted to talk to, and that was like my patients essentially. It took me some time to realize that I very quickly became a page where I just had a ton of med student followers, a ton of doctor followers, and that was
Mm-hmm.
great. But I was like, I mean, when I say vaccinate your kids or get the HPV vaccine to a bunch of doctors and med students, they're going to go, yeah, do it. And because they already agree. And that wasn't the right audience for me. So probably I started this page in August of 2017, and probably in March of 2018, I made a very distinct turn to kind of join the mommy blogger community rather than the medical blogger community, because I
Mm-hmm.
thought, where can I actually talk to people who need to hear what I'm saying? And that's going to be if I'm interacting with more of my patients and less of my colleagues. Not because I don't love having colleagues that I make connections with here, but just because that's how I make the impact here.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Like I've noticed that I've tried to adjust a little bit with the type of surgical videos that I put out. I found that a lot of like patients, if you will, or potential patients of mine, like they don't actually want to see all like the bloody details. Like they really just want to see like a before and after, or just learn about, you know, the process or who's a good candidate. So I've like stopped doing some of the more technical, I guess, videos and that my colleagues I think were enjoying, you know. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm like, I guess I'm slowly morphing towards that too. Like educating your peers is one thing, but you can reach a much bigger audience, I guess, if you go out towards, I guess, potential patients or people like your patients. That makes a lot of sense. Like, how much time do you set aside, Danielle, now to like creating content? Because I mean, you're so busy, I'm sure, with family, with your clinical responsibilities. Like, how much time do you find in like a week to do this stuff?
It varies. YouTube is a very time consuming platform. And so I mean, it's a whole other job. I mean, I bet I spend 25 to 40 hours a week, depending on the
Wow.
week. Obviously, some of that can be done like over lunch when I'm at the hospital, or in the evenings after my kids are asleep or whatever. But I usually have one day a week, like today is my day this week, where I did a podcast this morning, and then I filmed a YouTube video, and now I'm talking to you, and then I'll edit it or get it to my editor. And it varies by week. And if there's a week where I need a break, like last week, people were like making me crazy, sending mean messages and stuff. And sometimes that happens, and I just am overwhelmed and I need to leave. And I kind of hop off for a little while. And then some weeks, something's going on that's really important that I need to talk about. And I spend a few hours every evening here. So it really just depends. But I think that's one thing physicians really miss when they decide they want to get online, is that we think, and I see this over and over and over in physician Facebook groups, that just because we are smart people and we are very educated on a topic, that people will just come to us, that we just deserve followers. And it's so untrue. Like, you have to still learn the platforms, learn how they work, figure out what people need to hear and how to speak to them, and how to speak to them without making them feel like you're talking down to them, and
Yeah.
earn your audience. You have to create valuable content to earn an audience here.
Right. Yeah, no, great point. And there's like a production, I guess, quality to it too that it has to have, because people don't really tolerate like, you know, crappy quality videos anymore. And so you just have to, I guess, get with the times on that. And I know I've like slowly upgraded my ways, you know, I have to figure out like what audio can I use that connects to my camera, you know, to give it like a little bit more of a professional feel. But as an example of that, I was just in the office, it was like last week, I had a surgery cancel or reschedule rather. And so I had some time to film. So I'm like, okay, this is the time, like, let's do it. My like new, like like fancy audio thing, the battery died. Like it was one of these remote mics. And I was just like, all right, well, I guess we're just going to film with like the built-in mic today. So I think when you get as big as you are, that stuff doesn't fly. It just has to all work. But I realized that
No, I mean, there's some days where I do that too. And honestly, sometimes it's worth just getting the content out there, especially if it's important, because we don't have all the expendable time that people
right.
who just do this as their job do. And I think people understand that. But you're right. I mean, it needs to be at least well lit and framed. And I think a big thing on YouTube also is people don't just want to see you like sit down and go, today we're talking about the menstrual cycle. This is estrogen, and here's where like that's not interesting. People get on YouTube for entertainment, and so
Yeah.
I made a very focused effort to do like entertaining educational content, and that was partly because of my personality. I would like to be funnier and learn how to be funnier and include some of that in my content, and make interesting topics that maybe are a little outside of my field every once in a while that are still interesting to me. And I think that's a big part of the YouTube community, is really connecting with your audience through some of that more personable stuff.
Yeah. It's amazing like how big the reach could potentially be, that like every day, right? It's like billions of people, kind of tuning in, and it's mind blowing if you really think about it. Because before, these platforms, it was very hard to ever reach, like forget about that many people, like thousands of people even in your life, and impact lives. So is there like any specific, and this is kind of corny, but any specific stories that you would mind like sharing, just about like people who, you say put up a video and, they wrote to you saying like you really positively impacted their lives? Or I'm sure this happens all the time, but if there's anything that stands out kind of through the online space, like people you've been able to reach. And
yeah, I mean, I get messages a lot of people saying like, watching your videos didn't like teach me a ton of stuff, but you made me feel like doctors aren't scary and I could make an appointment and go to the gynecologist, and I went and got a pap smear. That's to me where this is important. And of course I want to teach you about the menstrual cycle, but at the end of the day, I would much rather you have your doctor and what I'm saying kind of spark a conversation with them, rather than you just sit here and get it all from me. And so I get messages like that all the time of people who got their first pap smear, or I made a series on HPV vaccination, and so many people reached out and said, I didn't know I still qualified. I thought I couldn't get it because I'm sexually active already. And my mom didn't get it for me because she said it would make me infertile because there was so much misinformation. And now I'm vaccinated and everything went fine. And like, those are the things that I'm like, yes, we really made a difference here. And I love when people get in contact like that. Obviously, those videos like HPV vaccination are a little bit lower view video, but to me, they're more impactful. And I still think they're super important.
yeah, no, it's fantastic. And then any obstacles now for you on social media that you see? Because obviously things are rolling. I mean, you have your audience, you have, a great following, but any obstacles to just, I don't know, getting things out there, or anything that you see that could be improved with maybe even the next platform that, eventually comes out?
I think there's a few things, and some of them are inherent to me and some of them are inherent to the platforms. But as my platforms have grown, I've become more and more concerned with saying the wrong thing or messing up. And of course, it's important to understand like we can't be perfect and we're never going to do everything exactly right. The other day I said something that was completely wrong because I inserted the wrong name of a hormone, and then someone messaged me and was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was this way. And I was like, oh my gosh, I completely said that wrong. Thank you for messaging me. But it's sometimes put so much pressure on me that I'll spend way too long researching a topic that I already know about and really almost get myself worked up into a tizzy over it because I'm afraid to put out content that 300,000 people are going to see and potentially have it be wrong. And so I think that is a barrier that you just have to get over it and keep putting out content and correct any mistakes that you make, or update your audience if science changes, which with pandemic medicine, we know is happening so quickly. And then the other thing is, I would love for all the platforms to be more searchable. And I think YouTube has really nailed that. I would love for all the other platforms to follow suit for YouTube to make it easier for creators to monetize their content, because of course we don't get on the internet just to make money, but it is nice to be reimbursed for the time that you spend here, and YouTube makes that much easier. And it would be nice if other platforms would find a way to value their creators in that same way. And then just a way to kind of combat misinformation. And what is the right way to do that? I don't know. I don't know if labeling posts as inaccurate is the right way, because that almost seems like it's made some things kind of take off more than they would have. You know, I wish there was a way to verify health professionals, but at the same time, there's some really scammy, scummy healthcare professionals who would get verified, and that they don't deserve it because they still share bad information. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of challenges, but it gets better with each platform. And I think new and unique ways of sharing information are always going to be coming along, and hopefully we can continue following those trends and be maybe a little faster about it than we have as physicians in the past.
Yeah, no, for sure. All great points. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I find that a lot of the medical stuff that's out there, at least related to my field, is highly promotional and very marketing based, as opposed to being truly educational. You know, there's some great educational content out there in my field, but it's not really accessible to the general public. It's more, you know, videos that are associated with like publications, or these like more kind of technical surgical videos that you have to pay money to subscribe to, and then you have access to them. There isn't that much out there for like patients to really learn more about, and people aren't spending the time or the effort to post good educational content on YouTube or Instagram or anything. It's all mainly done to just, you know, I don't know, sell their goods or their services. So, you know, I try to, you know, do kind of both. I mean, because you know, you want to be growing a practice, but you also want to be putting out sound information that's valuable to people. So yeah, that's been kind of my biggest, I don't know, challenge. It's just, I guess, an opportunity to do something that a lot of others aren't, and, you know, that you've been doing for years. So
yeah, I think people sometimes miss too the fact that you don't have to advertise anything for people to find you. Patients find, right now I'm in a practice that's hospital based, so patients don't come looking for me anymore. But when I was in private practice, I got so many patients from, and my Instagram was so much smaller back then, just from Instagram and YouTube. And I never went like, hey, come see me at XYZ. Like, I never even published where I was working, but people will find you if you're putting out good information. If they see you as someone who is safe, is invested in their health, is trustworthy, they're going to find you. So I don't think any doctor needs to get online to advertise, even though when I first made my page, that was my thought, is like, I'll grow my practice this way. But you don't have to. All you have to do is share good information and be a good doctor, and then people will use that to find you.
yeah, perfect. Awesome advice. I mean, anything else that you want to add about this topic? Hopefully this is useful, you know, for our audiences, but also for other doctors who are looking to, you know, to add their face to this whole community of really educating, you know, folks online in kind of a more fun way that they wouldn't otherwise, you know, get elsewhere. So
yeah, I saw someone in the comments say, I wish more people would add captions to their videos. And I think that's incredibly important, not only for the hard of hearing community, but also for people who like to watch videos without the sound. And I think that's something platforms should be invested in, is making it easy to caption your videos, because it's hard right now. And it would be very easy for every platform to integrate for people with hearing problems to be able to consume their content more easily, where it was automatic. So I wish that people would keep pushing the companies to do that instead of pushing creators to caption it. Even though I try to caption all my videos, we caption all our YouTube videos, I try to caption my Instagram ones, but like, this is live, we can't do it here. Instagram could easily integrate that.
That's true. Yeah, that's great advice for them if they're listening, which I'm sure they're not. But
yeah,
no,
Instagram.
the platforms have to evolve and improve, just like, you know, the rest of us. So you know, hopefully they will. Very good. Thank you again so much, Dr. Jones, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice chat, and I will see you around. Let me know if you ever need anything or have questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you again. Take care.
Bye.
All the best. Bye.